This is Sky Fire News, the best UFO show on the internet. Sky Fire News is on the internet. Sky Fire News. Sky Fire News. UFO show on the internet. Skyfire News is on the internet. Don't look for no TV, ma. Sky Fire News. This is Sky Fire News, the best UFO show on the internet. Sky Fire News is on the internet. Sky Fire News. Sky Fire News. UFO show on the internet. Skyfire News is on the internet. Don't look for no TV, ma. Fire News.
What is going on, UFO community and everybody else out there? It is Monday. You know how we do it. We're going to give you guys the rundown of what we missed over the weekend and some crazy news that happened today. We got a great show ahead of you guys. I want to thank everybody for popping in. Look who we got. Maximal. Yo. Alana's in the mix. How's everybody's weekend, by the way? Flint Fancy? Good to see you. Sam Danner? That's what I'm talking about, dude. So, I hope everybody had a great weekend. We're living large out here because some wild news happened. I mean, I think it's amazing. Julian Assange is free. What happened? Apparently, he negotiated an escape. My boy is free. Our boy is free. I don't know how you feel about Julian Assange, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how you guys feel about him, but for me, I just think, like, didn't he, like, do enough? You know what I mean? I mean, he was just telling people what was going on. WikiLeaks, that's cool. That's my opinion. Hope I don't get arrested by the thought police here, but I'm sure you guys all kind of agree. What did he do? He exposed some of the craziest war crimes you could imagine that America was doing in the West. It's not great. Not great. He's been on the run for how long? Years. Maybe a decade or something. This shit's wild. And now he's on a plane. Diligent asked a question. I don't know if you guys follow Diligent on Twitter, but you should. He asked the question, do you think that he's going to arrive in America and be free still? Or are they tricking him? I don't know. I found out about this news from John Lennon's son, Sean O'Lennon. I don't know if you guys follow him. But Sean O'Lennon, good account to follow. Yeah, found out about this, pretty wild. Also today, Stephen Greer showed up on a pretty popular podcast. And as always, Greer's dropping the heat. I mean, he talks about this stuff all day, every day. So he went through all the regular hits You know what I mean? At this point, he's like Led Zeppelin. Play the hits. Speaking of which, we got Red Panda in the mix. Red Panda, pop in whenever you want to. This Julian Assange thing, like, blew my mind. What do you guys think about this? Fred Rogers says, plea agreement made because shit is about to go down. Yeah, I'm hearing a lot about that. I mean, what do we have? We have the media stoking the fires, right, of people. We never felt more separated. Could there be some tensions? I mean, we got us and Russia. If so, what's the play here to free Assange? To garner, like, morale? Support? I don't know.
Society anymore. What there is a transnational security elite that is busy carving up the world using your tax money. To combat that elite, we must not petition. We must take it over. We must form our own networks of strength and mutual value, which can challenge those strengths and self-interested values of the warmongers in this country and in others that have formed hand in hand an alliance to take money from the United States, from every NATO country, from Australia, and launder it through Afghanistan, launder it through Iraq, launder it through Somalia, launder it through Yemen, launder it through Pakistan, and wash that money in people's blood.
Dang. Yeah, so he's out. You know what? There's hope for him. There's hope for everybody. Shout out to Red. Red, what do you think about Assange? You been following this?
I was surprised by this. I didn't see this coming like so suddenly like this. I know his wife's been out there like advocating for him a lot and whatnot. Yeah, I see what Fred Rogers said, that plea deal because stuff's about to go down. That's an interesting take. And yeah, I don't know, man. And we did talk about it. I think you said I got here a little late, but I think tomorrow we're going to do a whole episode, right, about Assange and UFOs. Why not? It's actually, he's a key part, I would say, and like the way a lot of things kind of rolled out.
Dude, I agree. There was this like flurry, a blitz almost, right, of media things going on. You like Breitbart and all this. I mean, it was very interesting. And then, yeah, all this other weird shit happened. So it's almost like they were right there at the beginning of it. Snowden.
Well, not just that, too. Remember the WikiLeaks were the things that kind of vindicated Tom DeLonge. Because 2016, 2015, Tom DeLonge's making all these claims of like, I'm meeting with high-level people, we're going to bring disclosure, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's like, you're crazy, bro. And then before 2017 happened, the WikiLeaks happened, and that's where we see that, oh, Tom DeLonge is actually talking to John Podesta and General Neil McCaslin about UFOs. So tomorrow we'll just go through all of those, I think.
Yeah.
He's also said some interesting things about Hal Puthoff, some unsavory things. He's not.
That I was surprised to find that out. The comments about Hal Puthoff.
Like that was weird, right? I was like, I wonder what the real reason is he doesn't like Hal Puthoff, and I'm sure there's probably some interesting reasons why he doesn't like Hal Puthoff.
I bet he knows. So, let's definitely do a deep dive into this because I didn't know how connected he was with the UFO stuff, and you got this thing figured out and dialed in. So we're gonna go over more Julian Assange stuff probably tomorrow. Do a little deep dive. The emails were a strange flex on DeLonge's part. He was so pumped to be proven right that he was talking to all these spooks. Very strange. But yeah, that is the Julian Assange situation. What do you want to talk about the Stephen Greer thing next? I mean, shit, a lot of stuff happened, man.
Yeah, let's just run through the presentation real quick here.
Sounds good to me. Get this music going. Pretty nefarious. We got more beats. Let's see if any of them grab the audience's attention. Chat, chime in. UFO Pizza, UFO. I thought Pam Anderson dating him gave her some fun street cred. Okay, well, maybe. Ooh, what do we got here?
All right, so here we go. Today is the 77th anniversary of the Kenneth Arnold flight, which was kind of the thing that kind of kickstarted a lot of the UFO craze in the late 40s, 1947.
Right.
Got a lot of press. The term flying saucer was coined in the hoopla of it all. So I figured, why not just watch a few old Kenneth Arnold clips just to kind of like palate cleanse us.
I love it.
An ordinary man in an ordinary street in America. But this man started the 1947 wave of sightings that swept the world when he claimed to have seen from his mountain rescue plane 9 disc-like objects, roughly 45 miles away, flying at a speed of approximately 1,500 miles per hour near Mount Rainier, Oregon. The date? June 24, 1947. Later, when asked by a reporter to describe how they flew, Arnold said their motion was like saucers skipping over water. In the papers the next day, the world first saw the term flying saucer. On June 24, 1977, 30 years to the day after he first sighted them, Ken Arnold consented to speak to us. He had refused to make any public statements for the last 5 years. It's easy to see that after 30 years, he's still angry at the disbelief.
All right, here we've seen something. I've seen something. Hundreds of pilots have seen something in the skies. We have dutifully reported these things. And we have to have 15 million witnesses before anybody's going to look into the problem seriously. Why, this is utterly fantastic. This is more fantastic than flying saucers or people from Venus or anything, as far as I'm concerned.
The greatest surprise was when Arnold reported his sighting to the nearest U.S. military airbase. He found on the wall of the commander's office this classified gun sight photograph, which bore a remarkable resemblance to what Arnold claimed he had just seen, and Shaver had discussed 3 years before.
So yeah, started it all, and it's always good to just remind ourselves, like, this stuff goes back a long time in a lot of different countries too. Let's see, I think I have another clip of him when he's flying over it.
I always forget that it took place in the Pacific Northwest. There's a lot of stuff happening in the Northwest.
Right in your backyard.
Yeah.
Like right there.
Like the McMinnville UFO sighting is like really considered like a true saucer than a true photograph, because there was 3 different photographs taken. They know exactly from where it was taken from. They were able to go on the property. They know the camera. They know the height of the guy who took it. Everything. And it's legit through and through. So they really photographed something. And then, there was that one, we'll go over this later, but that one picture that just dropped, right? That said it was like Central Oregon with a UFO crash in the woods or something.
See, I don't even know anything about that. Mm-hmm. I'm so out of the loop on that. But I think Pacific Northwest, a hot spot, at least at certain points in time, huh?
Yeah, I think it's the mountain range too. There's Mount Shasta, right, in Northern California, right on the border between California and Oregon. Then there's Mount Hood, another hot spot. Mount Rainier, a hot spot. And that's just the Cascade Mountains all the way up. And there's just so many different volcanoes and shit up here. And we all know that volcanoes are a UFO hotspot. So very interesting.
Yeah, hotspot, LOL. I didn't realize there's that many volcanoes up there. Oh, what's the one? Mount St. Helena or whatever?
Helens. So close.
Helens, yeah.
I think it refers to the same thing. So, but yeah, that's the thing that exploded, that volcano. Serious business. It's the Ring of Fire. So there's all these volcanoes around the Pacific Rim.
Isn't that one gonna kill us all?
Yeah, for sure.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully not in our time, but we'll see. Yeah. Be pretty weak.
At this point is when I would say approximately is where I had this terrific flash hit the air. My aircraft lit up the inside of my aircraft, and I assumed, of course, at the time in a split second that it was probably a P-51 fighter that had dove over my nose, and that it was the sun's reflecting upon his bright wing surfaces that caused it. However, before I gathered my wits together, I looked way off here to the north, and that's when I saw where the flash came from. It was an echelon formation of very peculiar-looking aircraft, and they were rapidly approaching Mount Rainier. And it was at about this point when I got here, I could see their tail surfaces, or the rear end of them, and the second craft from the rear had a more or less crescent-shaped look, and it had a hole in the center of it. And of course, I kept mulling in my mind, that's the damnedest looking airplane I ever saw. I looked at my sweep secondhand on my 24-hour clock, and they had covered this distance of approximately 50 miles in a minute and 42 seconds. It was placing their speed at approximately 1,700 miles an hour, 1,781 it came out at that distance, which was, of course, unheard of in 1947. I says, well, I tell you, they flew erratically like a saucer would if you skipped it across the water. And, of course, then all of a sudden, the term flying disc and this type of thing, or crescent-shaped or whatnot, was completely dropped, and everybody started seeing flying saucers. And they've been seeing them ever since.
Here we've seen something, I've seen something, hundreds of pilots have seen something in the skies. We have dutifully reported these things. And we have to have 15 million witnesses before anybody's going to look into the problem seriously. Boy, this is utterly fantastic. This is more fantastic than flying saucers or people from Venus or anything, as far as I'm concerned.
So yeah, pretty interesting stuff there. Let me see. Let me just bring it to here. I don't know.
More of the goats.
Let's see. There's an interesting. Sig Bishop says, "You guys ever watch any of the volcano UFO connection stuff?" Yeah, we've talked about it a few times here, and it was featured in the Michael Masters paper that just went viral as hell. And there's the one in Mexico that always seems to be having UFOs around it. That's pretty wild. So yeah, that's a interesting. I didn't think about the volcano connection to the Pacific Northwest stupa. That's a very interesting thought. Some things that come to mind when I think of Arnold too, that are kind of interesting are. Do you know, like, when he saw the saucers, that he was one of like many planes that were like looking for this downed Marine aircraft in the area that kind of went down under semi-sketch circumstances? Could have just been a proper malfunction, but there was, from what I remember, it's been a while, there was something weird about it. And then the other thing is, he was like an experiencer, I think, for like a long time, and I think even his daughter was on some like woo stuff, which you don't really hear about a lot, because his is like kind of like the classic like 1940s like nuts and bolts kind of encounter. But yeah, after this, apparently he had like a bunch of anomalous experiences. I should know exactly what they were, but do you know?
I never knew that, dude. That's crazy. I mean, it falls right in line with a lot of other experiencer stories, right? You see something, and then all of a sudden there's this like hitchhiker effect, and it starts to follow you home, and you're experiencing some paranormal stuff, or it could go vice versa. But very strange. I had no idea, none. And if it had happened to his daughter too, I mean, there's that research by Gary Nolan that suggests that maybe people who have these experiences have some kind of like genetic marker for this. So I wonder if Nolan is interested in the Arnold family. That'd be interesting.
Yeah, very much so. All right, let's continue. That was a little UFO history. It's pretty wild. 77 years ago today. The way they talk back then is just so, it's so nice, huh? Okay.
Now look what happened to Tucker.
And then we got Dr. Greer. He's been making the rounds a lot lately, actually. Here he is on Patrick Bet David. You think Rogan's going to have him on?
I hope so.
Honestly, kind of shocked that, like, what is it, Carson? He's been everywhere, you know what I mean? And I'm kind of surprised. Like, kind of goes to show, right? Kind of like when we were first meeting Keem, and he was like, dude, everyone outside of UFO land, like, Greer is the guy. You know what I mean? It's really interesting to see, like, these different data flows, or like, I don't know. But so yeah, Greer on Patrick Bet David. Like, I'm kind of shocked that Greer's on Patrick Bet David before any of the like TTSA people. You know what I mean? Like, stuff like that. But let's listen to what he said. We clipped two things today on Skyfire. Two interesting things.
Carlson. I don't know if you know who Tucker Carlson. He was on Fox.
I was on the show a month ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I would like to be on it, but see, he got gaslit. He had a whole bunch of disinformation people come to him and provided him with enormous amount of false information. And so one of the problems is, a little knowledge is a very dangerous thing on this issue. And it's very easy for someone with a limited amount of access and information to have people come in and steer them in the direction of the aliens are eating us for lunch and taking our babies, right? That whole rubbish. But that is really the stock and trade. So if you move in that direction.
Interesting what he says there, huh?
Dude, we've been calling it.
He basically kind of makes his own little analogous reference to the Bledsoe DeLong encounter, right? He says, what did he say? Reptilians eating people too? Let's go back a little bit.
Information to have people come in and steer them in the direction of the aliens are eating us for lunch and taking our babies, right? That whole rubbish. But that is really the stock and trade. So
yeah, he's definitely talking about, right, like who's in Tucker's orbit. Elizondo and Gary Nolan for sure, I'd say.
Yes, absolutely. Not even like a guess. We know for a fact that Elizondo and Gary Nolan are both in his sphere directly.
Not just sources. In his sphere, texting him, in my opinion, strategically when he's on Rogan, as in Elizondo is texting him. So like the first thing that Tucker Carlson ever speaks about on Joe Rogan is something from Lue Elizondo about Lue Elizondo. You know what I mean? Not saying that's necessarily malicious, but I think it was tactical.
Oh, shit. Beats and Meats. Hell yeah, with the super chat. Let it rip.
So nowadays I'm all about the fatty. You better get some. Too busy hating, ain't getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty. They getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty. Yeah, they ain't ready for.
We are absolutely going to talk about the Nazca Mummy thing today. Absolutely. But first,
let him cook. Let him cook now.
We got thank you, Beats and Meats. Hell yeah. I'm very surprised by this. I mean, from my research, I've been researching Tucker Carlson a lot and trying to figure out where he got his ideas, and from whom. And I've narrowed it down pretty well, right, to these people we just mentioned, Elizondo and Gary Nolan. And it reinforces his spiritual views, it seems to. But it also kind of scared Tucker, scared him off of the subject altogether. But like, they have this weird kind of spiritual view, esoteric, occultish kind of vibe. But within that vibe, I never hear, from a technical standpoint, anything about evil beings coming here to eat us. I never hear about that, right? So like, either that's something that's being inserted, right, into the lore by these guys, or there's some deeper secret mystery school knowledge that's not really talked about in the public about what these things really are. But as far as I can tell, it seems to be an artificial insertion. I thought that Tucker thought it was angels and demons, but like, I didn't think that he would ever have considered what Greer is suggesting right now, that these aliens are here to eat us and shit, which again, hard to believe, but not unheard of. People talk about it all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's like the Carla Turner thesis, basically, is what they're telling people, in my opinion. Let's see.
What's your over under? You think they're eating us?
I think some of them for sure. I think, if not eating us, doing something to us, where I think definitely humans get mutilated like cows do. There's been like enough of them where like, ooh, that looks kind of a lot like a cow, bro. And the blood's drained and what's going on here?
What do you think about the Jesus thing? We've heard this thing before about like, oh, if you say the word Jesus Christ while you're being abducted, they'll just run away from you. These little aliens. Is there any truth to that? Or are they just trying to inspire hope in a hopeless situation?
I've heard some cases it works, some it doesn't. Tom DeLonge says that like, if you don't even have to say Jesus, but if you just say like love, or like the love of the entire universe, or some kind of like more abstract view of like God, that it would work. But I don't know. I do think there's a weird consent element though of it with like CE5 even, right? And that's kind of a good thing. But I don't know, there's some weird dynamics at play.
Agreed.
get to the next clip.
Greer was
I've had
on
4
Rogan, but
people
they
on my
dropped the
team
show.
Oh yeah,
sorry
and
about
Greer actually says that like that Rogan's bought out. He's controlled opposition, and that actually that was part of his Spotify deal. Like, in order for him to get all that Spotify money, he had to drop the Greer episodes and only keep the Chris Mellon, Robert Bigelow. You know what I mean? I don't think I necessarily believe that, but it is interesting, right? He did.
Well, it did
not
happen.
include those episodes
It did happen. Like, whether or not he
Yeah.
was told specifically to do that, I don't know, or the motivation. But we do have the result, which is that his episode's gone. Spooky.
And he was like the first UFO guy, you know what I mean, to go on Rogan, and he went on like multiple times, probably like even year 1 or 2 of Rogan. So yeah, it's pretty. Okay, what does your gut tell you? Was it an oversight? Like, did they just mess up, or was it an intentional thing? Him not being included on the Spotify, his Rogan episodes.
Well, let's really get our tinfoil hats on. Are you guys ready? I think we need to put them on. I think we need to put them on all the way.
It's time for the conspiracy of the day.
Okay. So we know that Joe Rogan was a huge voice, right, in the UFO research. We know that. Joe Rogan's like a huge voice right now in media altogether. He's the biggest. And on his come up, he had a real, like, he kind of controlled the UFO narrative by who he had on. And so you have this deal come through, $100 million, right, through Spotify. I mean, could they have laundered the money? Is that a CIA op? Is that a Christopher Mellon op? They're like, okay, here's $100 million. Now we own this thing. Essentially, we own this, the best media source in the world. And then now they're only going to be talking about the what we want talked about, and you got to remove the Stephen Greer. If you remove the Stephen Greer, we'll give you 10 more million under the table. Like, I believe something like that could have easily happened. We got Rob the Great. He says Jesus was a Nordic hybrid, in my opinion. Let's find out. Wall Street, what do you
So
think?
nowadays I'm all about the fatty. You better get some. Too busy hating, ain't getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty. They getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty. Yeah, they ain't ready for.
Quite possible. Quite possible. Good to see you, Rob. Thank you.
I just whipped this up real quick so we could just talk about it or look at it while we're talking about it. But look at how throwback that was, bro. I can't even like the set. That must have been like the first or second set. So yeah, it is interesting, man. I don't know. I do not know. And then to have Billy Carson on, and then to still not have Lue on, bro. I wish Rogan would just let it all out one day, because he's probably got some weird back channel feelings on all of this stuff based on some of the moves he's made, and like, I don't know. He's kind of a dick to Tom DeLonge, in my opinion. I guess that's kind of a little more clear with hindsight of like, oh, a lot of stuff Tom said did end up happening, but I don't know, man. Pretty weird. But let's continue this clip.
I've had 4 people on my team killed.
4 people in your team killed.
I have. And you know, when Mr. Grush was asked about this at the House Oversight hearing last year, he said yes. And because when Mr. Grush was working with people that I had been briefing to give information so he could begin to drill down on this, but he was not a direct whistleblower witness. He's called.
And I think that is like a confirmed thing. Grush did speak to Greer, right? I think he kind of did his due diligence and kind of he talked to dark journalists, right? Or he ended up not talking to him, but he was still, I think, there's enough corroborating evidence, I think, out there that shows that Grush did talk to at least a smorgasbord of people beyond what the like disclosure narrative strictly people would probably co-sign. You know what I mean?
A whistleblower.
100%.
He's not. He didn't directly deal with the technology or the programs. He was investigating them on behalf of the folks that I was given information to tell them where to go. Like I told them exactly where to go in the high desert of California to find this stuff, or wherever. So But, someone asked, one of the members of the committee, I think it was Congressman Burchett, who I've been working with, asked, well, have people been killed? And of course, a few months earlier, I think it was January of last year, there was a peripheral person on that team who was killed because he stuck his nose in the wrong place. So people are very naive, frankly, if they don't think this kind of corrupt power. Think of the worst thing you've ever heard about the mafia or the mob on steroids, hypercharged on steroids.
But let's stay on that.
That's what you're dealing with. So they're thugs.
4 people that were killed on your team, they're public. But like, how were they killed, and how recent was it?
Oh, this goes back in the 90s.
What were you talking about? And that, what were they talking about or digging that cost them their lives?
They were deep cover sources giving me information.
So they had jobs
before I had good security in place, and I didn't have what I have in place now, which I call.
Can you say what they did for a living or no?
Well, there were various. Well, one was a military naval intelligence guy. One was CIA. And one was an assistant of mine.
It was an assistant of yours.
I'm a good friend.
How did he get killed? How did she get killed?
It was basically a chemical weapon that was induced a very aggressive cancer very quickly. And, I have an FBI lady on my team who's a special agent. She said, we have 150 substances like that.
150 substances to inject cancer into somebody.
Or brush up against someone or do something that will kill them. Yeah.
So what do you think about this? He gets roasted about this a lot. I don't know if you remember, this is what he cried about in that one movie where people make fun of him for crying. Do you have any thoughts?
It's quite possible he's lost people that he knows in this research. It's quite possible. I mean, it's not unheard of, and this is a very protected thing. He's pushing a lot of buttons. Have I verified any of this stuff? No. He's very I don't want to say theatrical because these could be true stories, but he's very dramatic about the way that he, pauses, and he has this very dramatic way of presenting this information where it tries to be so subtle, but he knows it's he's dropping heavy bombs. And I'd like to, dive into those claims one day to see what, how many times has he said this stuff? How dangerous is it if he's still walking around speaking? How dangerous is it? But it's not to be ignored, right? We can't be ignorant to the fact that, the DOE is involved, and, things get really crazy when you have all these different factions involved with the secrecy and then the narrative control. And that's exactly what Greer's work is shaking up. So, quite possible. Spooky.
Yeah. My thoughts on this are, I'm kind of with you. I think it's pretty possible, especially when you consider the 90s. Greer, I think, definitely has his faults, right? But I think this even kind of ties in with the Lue Elizondo stuff, right? And what we've heard some of the Lue Elizondo approved media assets say about Greer. He was the shit in the 90s, right? And he was kind of a little more respectable, especially 2001, right? He was the guy. So, and I think one of the deaths he's referring to happened around the same time that William Colby, who was a CIA director, died under kind of suspicious circumstances. So, I mean, I personally believe that people have been killed for this stuff. And I do think he was the shit in the 90s, bro. He was meeting with the Rockefellers. He's collecting all these witnesses that no one had ever heard of. You know what I mean? Think about before the internet, before you could just go on Eyes on Cinema. You know what I mean? These tapes were gold, basically. If you listen to DeLong talk about it, because he was friends with Greer. These witness testimonies that are all on his YouTube channel, they were literally gold.
Absolutely. He was on Greer's crack couch, wasn't he?
Yes, that's what I was going to say too, is that you also have to think kind of in a way, the Lue Elizondo, and I'm not saying Lue Elizondo specifically, but just kind of the apparatus of the controlled government disclosure kind of poached DeLong and Gary Nolan, in my opinion, from Greer. And I'm sure Greer kind of did some stuff on his own, but it's kind of weird that these two people were kind of both in the Greer camp at one point in time, and Danny Sheehan, right? And now they're kind of not. And I'm sure some of that is probably Greer's own thing, but like I said, I think the way we've heard the media assets of Elizondo say that Elizondo is trying to prevent people from creating cults or religions, right? And Greer is the perfect example of somebody who could, and honestly, in some ways, I think is. Some of the stuff he does is kind of religious. I think anyone having too much of a voice in this stuff is just so unknowable and unpredictable. I think that's why they have to like go after him so hard, in my opinion, because he was the biggest voice pre 2017, basically from 1990s to like 2017. He was like the biggest voice, right?
I think he's such a threat to the narrative they're trying to control that they refer to him as a terrorist.
Exactly. He's a lot of things, right? There's a lot of actually fair criticisms you can make of Greer, but I would never think terrorist. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's so strange. He seems like a patriot to me. So weird.
Especially coming from somebody who like worked at Guantanamo Bay. It almost has like it hits different, you know what I mean? Than like, I don't know. Yeah, really weird stuff.
It kind of sounds stupid. I mean, if I'm just being honest, calling Stephen Greer a terrorist is laughable, in my opinion.
Yeah,
so silly.
Call him a
so
scammer,
silly.
Call him a grifter, but terrorist?
Yeah.
What?
Now I question your judgment on like what you're saying ever.
That's like saying like mass shooter Stephen Greer, or you know what I mean? It's just like, okay. Anyways, all right. Well, let's continue. That's shouts out Greer. Shouts out Little Pop Tart. Big Greer head in the live chat. There's this page that I whipped up real quick.
On my signal.
So, oh damn, I didn't even put up a picture of the mummies, but this is what happened over the weekend, and it's kind of interesting. It all kind of ties in my opinion. They all tie into each other. This narrative control thing, right? Because now all of a sudden, dude, the mummies are a-okay because a priest of disclosure has signed off on them, right? So let's just listen. Shouts out Matt Ford. Shouts out Gary Nolan, friend of the show. So this was an American researcher who's been looking into the mummies, and he did a 3-hour presentation with Matt Ford, which is honestly cool, right? Like, I'm not hating on that, but it is just kind of weird, this dynamic, especially because the whole thing with Ryan Graves, right? This whole drama, this whole hoopla, the thing that happened with us, kind of with Michael Mazzola, right? And to Greer says that Gary Nolan and the Atacama skeleton, like that was some sketch stuff, and that we're definitely gonna do. We're doing an Assange episode, and we're gonna do a mummy episode. Don't worry.
Well, these dudes, they wanted to position themselves in between, like, you know, what we know and what we don't know. They wanted to be the ones to usher certain things in. And that was reflected in the MH370 case. I don't really want to talk about that, but it was, right? I mean, it really was. And then now this, and I swear we talked about this. I swear we predicted this, that the mummies will become a thing as soon as like Gary Nolan and these guys want to turn it into a media thing. But right now they're just not ready. They're handling too many fronts at one time. And so there was all this bullshit. But then you watch these guys, certain people were quiet about it. And you just knew. And then, like you said, we found out from Mazzola about, and that's like he directed Sirius, right? This guy, Michael Mazzola, he directed these movies for Greer. And he said he had an interaction with Gary Nolan, where Gary Nolan was like, listen, you know, yeah, there's these like human elements to the skeleton, but it's so many different quote unquote mutations that there's no way it happened naturally. So who did that? And like left it kind of open-ended. And that's what Michael told us. And then we quoted that, and then it turned into this big fucking thing. But it turned into this big thing. And then, you know, we had like, there was like, it was dramatic. And really what it was is these guys didn't want their name attached to it just yet. And look at where we're at right now. Matt Ford letting it finally be talked about. The mummies.
I'm trying to find the picture real quick because with the Atacama thing, right? And honestly, I have not deep dove it, so I'm not like saying 100% anyway. But it is interesting in there seems to be like a million mummies, right? In this new kind of batch, there's like 2 separate ones from different parts of the earth that look fairly similar to the Atacama one. And Greer, like I said, Greer says, and I don't have the clip up because we do kind of have a lot of stuff to do. But for the mummy episode, we'll definitely like cover all this super in depth. But Greer straight up says that like Gary Nolan debunked these publicly to get CIA contracts, which, I mean, he did debunk them publicly and he did get CIA contracts afterwards. I don't know if the causality is there, right? But I don't know, man. I do not know. I want to find this picture though, man, because like I said, have you seen it? What I'm talking about, Dupa? There's like
No.
2 of them that look just like the Atacama. They're like super small compared to like what was shown at the Mexican hearing.
Oh wow.
But I can't find it right now.
Are they the ones where they're kind of curled up?
I think so.
Dude, yeah, I saw some stuff that Brian Forrester showed. Like they're finding these similar things all over. It's not just one place. And sure enough, here we go. I think we're going to have to face some very big questions pretty soon because of these bodies and these different skeletons. And we just don't know what the world was like even as recently as 6,000 years ago. Like our written record doesn't even go back that far for most civilizations, right? Like people thought that like agriculture didn't even start until 4,000 years ago, 6,000. Then they're like, okay, 9. And then now with Göbekli Tepe, it's like, okay, well, 13,000 years ago. It's like way too far back. So we don't know like what else was out there. We don't know what else was coming here. We don't have a full fossil record. And this is a very interesting thing too. We know what's alive today, and that's great. But like we don't have a full fossil record of everything that was alive ever before. So they've identified some aspects of these bodies, these little mummies that don't really reflect anatomy and features of earthly creatures based on what we have. Like we don't see those consistent things, like because of like the way the hips are, the way that the spine is, like it reflects in like nothing that we have on Earth. So it's either some crazy offshoot or it represents a whole type of animal that we didn't ever document through the fossil record because our fossil record's like probably 1%, 2%. Not everything
Here's the
fossilizes.
clip of Greer talking about it real quick. Just play it real quick.
Atacama being.
That's the being that back some years ago came to our attention that had been taken out of the Atacama Desert in Chile. And it got covered up by some charlatans at Stanford and UCSF. Dr. Gary Nolan, who I'd entrusted with the genetics, ended up altering the genetics to show that it was a deformed fetus. But we know it isn't. And it was a child. Still had growth plates in the bones and the equivalent of a 6-year-old child, but it was only about 5 or 6 inches big. So it was some kind of, we don't know. I mean, we don't have a database of extraterrestrial genetics, but we do know that this is something quite extraordinary. And one of the problems is when you bring someone in to do these kind of tests, how easy is it for them to get corrupted? We found out that a $3.5 million or so grant from the Pentagon landed at this scientist's place as soon as he got our DNA sample from this Atacama humanoid. So if you look at the documentary Sirius that we can provide a link to, you'll see a whole research about that. And the top genetic malformation for bone malformation expert in the world at Stanford, Dr. Lockman, said point blank, there are no genetic defects like this, and most certainly isn't an aborted fetus, which is what the cover-up artist said. And then that's what was reported in the New York Times and Boston Globe and elsewhere. So what you find is that even when you get hard...
Boston Globe, you know who that was, right?
Ben Affleck.
Leslie Keane. She started there. I don't know if that's who he was referring to, but I'd imagine.
Good point.
It can be intercepted and then twisted, and then the mainstream media and these big academic institutions will then pervert it into something completely false. So that's a huge problem. It's like I've learned the hard way just exactly who can you trust if someone's going to be blackmailed or bribed or threatened, and that is.
It's crazy. It extends even to today because, like, we saw that happen with the Skyfire post. And just to remind people, a quick rundown: we had Michael Mazzola, who directed, I think, Sirius, or at least 2 of Greer's documentaries. I don't think he directed that one because remember when he in the story, it'll explain. But he basically came into space. We were all talking, right? We were talking about the mummies. It's been a kind of a divisive thing, especially before Gary Nolan's cosign. people get really frustrated if you just like wait for evidence on this stuff. Anyways, Michael Mazzola is also kind of organizing some of the presentations around the world. So like this was right before the Hollywood one where the sound didn't work. Remember that? That was sketch. The audio, and Michael said that the audio was working fine like every test that they did before that, but that's a sidebar. He comes in, we're just kind of talking, and then somehow Gary Nolan comes up, and then he says that at the premiere of Sirius in like, I don't even know what year this would have been, like 2016, 2014 maybe, Gary Nolan told him that he thought that maybe that the Atacama being was engineered by aliens. And let me just go to a spot where the Atacama being is. That it was engineered by aliens.
And real quick, Michael Mazzola actually directed Unacknowledged, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, so CE5, The Cosmic Hoax, and then The Lost Century. He directed that as well, and How to Reclaim It. And these documentaries are people rave about them. I remember Steven Tyler telling Joe Rogan like 18 times, "You need to watch Unacknowledged. You need to watch Remember that?" And he just was like, it was like the best film he ever saw.
It was my first documentary after the whole 2017 stuff, and I saw on the news like it was the main stuff that was on Netflix at the time. And honestly, the one I remember seeing I think was pretty good. Like it wasn't like all, it was kind of about the history and the security or whatever. But anyway, so yeah, Michael Mazzola, Greer camp, whatever. He says that. He also says that like it was kind of an offhand thing in a bathroom, but he was a little sketched out too, right? He was kind of saying that like
What, we lost you.
Darcy Weir and
Now you're back.
What's he gonna say? Oh yeah, people are pushing back on him, and then we clipped it, right, and put it on Skyfer because like it's interesting. Like Greer's documentary director is kind of saying that.
Dude, it was big news. It was huge news. Like, why wouldn't we clip it? Like, here we have this acclaimed, critically acclaimed director of Stephen Greer's most famous documentaries saying that he was sidebarring with Gary Nolan, and Gary Nolan contradicted what he said to the cameras.
Correct.
That's really fucking, sorry to say it, that's really important, right? But yeah, it caused quite a stir. Again, because there's these untouchable topics, right, that these guys don't want their name attached to just yet because they haven't figured out a way to incorporate it into a rollout plan. And a lot of this is marketing and appearance, right? That's what I mean. When you look at disclosure, you know, it's marketing. These are like trademark names now and shit. Like they're no longer loose leaf terms. Okay, so
let me. So that happens, right? And then Gary Nolan kind of blasts Skyfire News. He blocks us. He calls us, I think, fake news and said that never happened. It was interesting. There were some people who worked on the movie on both sides saying it happened, it didn't happen, but we ended up taking the post down because Michael was getting hella harassed and like threatened and stuff over this because Gary Nolan had just kind of put a big mark on Michael Mazzola, calling him like a lying POS and stuff. What was interesting was after all the hoopla, Gary Nolan tweets out something that like, "Oh, you know what? I might have said that at some point in time before the peer review paper." So it was kind of like almost pointless. It was like, why did you cause all this drama and all this dude to get like just totally like dragged and like treated just like a total piece of crap, right? It's so weird. Anyways.
No, that was pretty messed up. It was really weird. It's a whole 180. Hey, Gary Nolan said this one interesting thing about this. Oh, shit. Hey, internet. Guess what Gary Nolan said? Gary Nolan. That's bullshit. I never said that. You're a liar. Internet. Fuck Michael Mazzola. 2 weeks later, Gary Nolan. Yeah, all right. I may have said that. But whatever. Okay. Thanks.
He was like, dude, I'm getting threats. Like, yeah. But anyway, so here's, we're not going to play this whole clip probably. Just the main kind of takeaway was that this guy is giving his presentation on the mummies, right? Which is sick, right? Shouts out Megan, shouts out King Wakata, us for being like open to it. And like, honestly, there's something up with these mummies. Anyways, let's watch. Oh shoot, wrong thing.
Dr. Gary Nolan just pinged, and he says, Matt, this presentation is amazing. Again, this is Dr. Gary Nolan of Stanford University, the executive director of the Soul Foundation. And he was, and he says, I don't want to come on. I was going to ask him if he wants to come on the air, but he says he looks like shit today. So he's just going to text these questions. But
so do I.
Well, you should see me without a suit. I totally look horrible. So anyway, so Dr. Nolan says, Matt, this presentation is amazing. Clearly, he's very impressed. He was noting here that there seem to be two different types. He notes here, the small ones seem very different than the other one that is crouched over. Are these two species?
In fact, they've described three, as far as I know, three different separate species of these mummies that were all discovered in this same repository of these body or corpses, really is what they are. They're not really mummies, they're corpses,
right?
Because they have all of their internal organs that are highly desiccated and fairly difficult to figure out what you're looking at. But as far as their interior organ structures, but they have discovered three different species that I'm aware of. All of them are quite different than one another. So.
Dr. Nolan was noting that the brain cases are very different between the two. So is it when he says that the brain cases are different, is the internal volume of the brain casing different in size, or is it more of just the shape of it? And would that indicate a difference in age of the different ones? So.
So, like I said, we're going to do a full episode on this at some point, probably soon. But it just kind of goes to show this whole, like, what me and Tuba talk about, like, this whole, like, weird priest class of ufology, where, like, overnight now, some people are still being true to their thing, but, like, some people are like, oh, it's okay to talk about these now, and before it wasn't. And how do you think, if these mummies turn out to be real, how do you think Ryan Graves is going to feel? And let's do a little walk down memory lane. This was at the Mexico hearing where these were first kind of unveiled, and this is kind of like the vibe. Let's see.
So nowadays I'm all about the.
Sorry about that. Read it. Let's read it out first, and we'll get to the music.
Red Tuba, given all of what's known and happened, what's your opinion on Greer versus Nolan? You say it's weird, but what's your take? Love ya. I think we kind of. I don't know, man. Like, I think they're both a little sketch in their own ways, but honestly, I'm a little more stressed out by Gary Nolan. Just some of the behaviors, I just don't understand. I just don't get it, I've just never seen Greer interact with someone who's, like, harassed and, like, done horrible stuff to half the community. What about you, Tupa?
Yeah, I think that the weird behavior from the other side is wild, and then their accusations are a lot more harsher. Their language is harsher. Their criticisms of Greer are harsher. So in many ways, Greer can't help but come out looking like the underdog, which you got to wonder, like, what did he do to be on the receiving end of this kind of like treatment from these guys? And he's just been this loud voice for a while, and his suggestion might have sounded wild at first, and it kind of bleeds in with all the other stuff that he says, but then over time it kind of now stands out where what has he said, like that there's like this weird narrative competition between these things being good and these things being bad, and a lot of people want them to be bad so they can increase funding for these programs and find ways to benefit themselves, but that's a false threat narrative. And when you at first I heard that, I'm like, okay, well maybe, but now I kind of believe it because of the way they're treating him. It's weird.
Yeah, that's one of the things I actually disagree with Greer on the most, probably, is that he's kind of in the they're all good kind of camp. And I just think there's a lot of evidence that shows some of them, at least, are not. And also the CE5, and shouts out Lil Pop Tart and Lil Pop Tart, the youngest CE5er. But I don't know. I think there needs to be more of a, like, precaution, or like, this is what could go wrong kind of in the conversation when it comes to CE5 that I just don't see. And I've seen people like get into UFOs, want to see something, download CE5, and then like before you know it, their like house is like poltergeist and like their family is like afraid. Like it's actually happened. I've seen it like play out. It's very strange from people who aren't trying to get famous or have a channel or any of that stuff. Just people like you see in the community online, right? So very strange. But look at this was at the Mexican hearing. Ryan Graves being standoffish and not wanting to do an interview in front of the mummies.
So you can do it somewhere else, or you can not do it. So you whatever you want. Okay. So you don't want it? You want no? Okay. You want to do it with him just with him? Wherever I can do it with all media, but I don't want to do it in front of the boss. Okay. I'll do it somewhere else. I will change. I don't want to do it. Just give me 1 second, please. Okay.
So right, super sus. Let's see, I got a few of them pulled up here. And then Jaime was pissed, right? Because he also like, right. And again, Jaime's also got his faults, right? But there's a very clear, like, you're with it or you're not kind of thing, right? And I think it's safe to say that Greer and Jaime, both faults that they all may have, like, they're not on the approved list, right? So this is an interesting, I think we might have to read this because I think it was in Spanish. Let's see. Oh, shoot.
Que él conozca que es algo. Aquí Ryan en la última parte dice, él es el que está diciendo que esa no es tecnología, que él haya visto, que él conozca que es algo totalmente fuera de lo convencional. Hasta el momento nadie ha podido determinar cuál es el origen de estos, pero nuevamente se vuelve a burlar de los Little Green Men, entonces de los pequeños hombrecitos verdes. Entonces Ryan.
So in case anyone's just listening only, he's talking about how nobody knows where these mummies came from, and Ryan Graves is like mocking them and like, what's going on here? Why are you mocking?
¿Qué es lo que tú crees? ¿Quién crees que maneja esa tecnología? Yo le diría a mi amigo Ryan que se deje de burlar de la posibilidad de que haya seres extraterrestres detrás de esta tecnología, porque no hay otra explicación, Ryan. Si bien saliste corriendo de aquí de México después de la primera audiencia porque se presentaron cuerpos.
Yeah, so he's like calling him out for running away, and Ryan Graves did do like a whole post, and I think he even said like he wishes he didn't go because of the whole mummy stunt, right? He was getting clowned, right? A lot of people were. But yeah, Jaime says a few more interesting things here. Let's just...
Pues que yo tengo el video donde te dije que esto iba a ocurrir. Afortunadamente hemos encontrado el video donde te lo comunico y tú no tuviste ningún tipo de, de... ¿Cortesía? No tuviste ningún tipo de comentario en ese sentido de que no querer participar o algo así. Ya después...
So he's saying that Ryan Graves knew about the mummies ahead of time, which honestly, when we covered this, when it all broke, it was only like a day or two. So I could see where there's kind of like a gray area for both sides, but we'll continue here.
Cuando salimos del Congreso ibas muy contento, te había parecido muy bien todo, pero puede ser que llegaste a tu hotel, que en la mañana me llamaste para decirme que tenías un problema en casa, ¿sí? Y que te tenías que retirar de manera inmediata, a pesar de que se había preparado un homenaje.
Yeah, they had a whole fiesta prepared with a bunch of Mexican pilots, and Ryan Graves was like, nope, not doing that anymore. Gotta go home. The mummy's like, he looks scarred. Like you could see his like, remember there's that shot of his like head like bowing when the mummies get rolled out. He's like, you could just see his like whole like thought process going on before his eyes.
No, it was wild. Like he looks terrified. But you know, I gotta ask, I think there might have to be two different options here of like why he was so shocked and why he didn't want to be around it. Number one, you know, obviously he doesn't, let's say he just doesn't think that they're real. But number two, he knows they're real, but he can't be part of that. And you know, it's scheduled for later. He can't be part of that right now. Like, you know, because they have such a tight grip on disclosure. Real quick, we got a question. It's also possible Nolan, being a scientist, is in it for access to deeper levels of truth and tech, and is willing to sacrifice autonomy. Slick Bishop with a $5 donut. Thank you, Slick. Good question too. I mean, yeah, or good point.
No, I 100% agree with that. And I think you even see that on like the micro level in this community, right? People are fiends for information about this, right? We're all curious minded people in this community. We want to know. And people are willing to do and say things that they would never do just for a little bit of info, just to get a little hit of info. You know what I mean? So yeah, imagine if that hit of info wasn't just like some counter intel dude giving you a sneak peek of his book, but it was actually some like crash retrieval thing. I think the curious minds, I think a lot of people actually would probably go for that. I wouldn't. I've said this publicly many times, but I think that's an insightful comment. Any thoughts, Tupa?
Yeah, I agree. Don't take privileged information, and if someone offers it to you, it's like offering somebody like luggage at the airport.
It's always a setup, right?
Yeah, it's a like, setup. Someone comes to you at the airport with a suitcase and is like, "Can you hold this for a second?" It's a setup.
Don't tell your family and friends.
For sure.
So honestly, though, I kind of leaned the other way. I don't think Ryan kind of knew ahead of time. I think he was probably just going with the info of like, maybe someone did tell him, because okay, look, let's continue, because there's a part where Jaime says like, who told you, right? He's like saying someone told you. Let's see.
Los pilotos mexicanos a tu persona por tener el valor de hablar de todo esto. Y entonces saliste corriendo a los Estados Unidos porque no te quisiste relacionar con el caso de los seres tridáctilos de Nazca. Seguramente algún día te vas a arrepentir de eso, Ryan, porque...
Sure. So he's calling him out for running, and honestly, I think the Fiesta thing added a lot of salt on the wound for Jaime here.
Yeah, he was hurt. He got all these people together. They got all the best food. Yeah. They were like, "Oh, Ryan Graves is going to be here," and then he just dipped out early. That sucks, dude.
And honestly, I think Ryan Graves should still get a bunch of credit for going down there and like trying to establish these like inner country. Although
I thought you were going to say like, he deserves a bunch of shit.
It backfired, right? It's supposed to be this like bridge building kind of thing, and then it ends up backfiring and becoming more of a divisive issue. These mummies are basically like, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, Jaime knew. I mean, he took a risk. He knew he took a risk by bringing them out the way he did. You know, like that's like a big surprise. He was going for that, for those theatrics. So like, you know, it is what it is at a certain level. But I do think that Ryan was hella rude the way he acted. He was super stern. He forgot that he was a guest. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think there's something to be said about that.
I hope they can. I hope they have a redo of that Fiesta. But I want to hear the clip. I want to see what the languages he says about who told you to run away. Let's.
Pues realmente yo nunca terminé de entender cuál fue tu actitud o quién fue quien te dijo que salieras corriendo a los Estados Unidos después de asistir a la primera audiencia pública que hubo en México. Y entonces sí publicar un tuit diciendo que había sido engañado, que yo no te había informado. Pero voy a demostrar.
So yeah, he's saying who told you, and honestly, like you could kind of get where he's coming from, right? Because Jaime had to put in a lot of work, right, for it just to get that to happen. And separate of the mummies, there was a lot of interesting things at that Mexico hearing. There was like radar operators, pilots. They even showed some videos from pilots. You know what I mean? It was very monumental, in my opinion, that happened there. And so it's almost like I could imagine the TTSA America bros being pissed if like on their big congressional hearing day, there was some outside force that just kind of like poo-pooed all over it in a really public way. You know what I mean? After all the work and effort. So I could see where Jaime's coming from on this, to be honest. And he's been dragged, bro, since the oh man. We actually we're gonna get Jaime on at some point, I think. But let's see. All right. Let's continue back. So that's kind of it for the mummies for now. We're definitely going to do a deeper dive, but just kind of, well,
there was another thing that happened with the mummies. I'll explain it. We don't have the clip ready, but there was another interview, and Pavel was part of it. Remember, Pavel talked to the Ohio State guy, the PhD guy, who was talking about having examined the bodies as well. And he, you know, this might be worth looking for the clip, right? I'm going to look for the clip.
Yeah, keep talking about it. I will look for the clip.
Okay, because dude, it's amazing. I look for the clip with the reference to the giant head. Okay, I'm just gonna walk you guys through this real quick.
When was it From?
Recently. So like when Pavel interviewed the Ohio State PhD of philosophy, and they talked about what his assessment of the mummies. He also referenced that he saw a photograph from the same people who verified the same thing. They said this, and I'll give you guys some. They said it had eyelashes, and what it was a head. Okay, the size of someone's torso.
I think I found the episode. Do you have a rough timestamp? Is it like 15 minutes in? Because it's an hour and a half episode.
Oh no, I think I found like a clip of it. Pop it up and let's just kind of scrub through. Look for his hands making a shape, like he's trying to describe how big like a watermelon is. It's very interesting, dude. Let me see if I can scrub through on my end and look for it too. It's just so strange. Is it on YouTube? I'll look for a transcription. But yeah, just more minds digging into this dude. Yeah, for sure.
It's this guy, right?
Mm-hmm. This is the interview. Shout out to Pavel, dude.
Shout out to Pavel,
friend of the show for real.
Some of his people are they don't have control sometimes of the material they put out, especially on social media. And there's a couple of people that have put out some material that is controversial, and then they take it down. Yeah. Especially, I'm going to talk to you specifically about an alleged head of a giant being.
Yes.
I want to ask you, do you know anything about that? Have you seen any evidence about that? What do you know about this alleged giant's head?
Yeah, so this is one of those things that I have to be a little careful about. There is
This is the exact clip, right?
Exactly, dude. I'm over here I'm hyped
I
that you found that it's right
a
here.
couple of external photographs of it. To my knowledge, it has not been X-rayed or CT scanned or DNA or carbon-14 or anything. From what I understand, very little has been done with it. I can't show you the picture because the people who showed me the picture asked me not to show the picture. But I can tell you, looking at it as a picture, it looks weird. It looks kind of fake, right? Now that being said, the mummies that I think are real, based on what I've seen about them, they look fake too, right? If you see them for the first time. So yes, there is an object. It is about it's about yay big. And it's so I guess if you're doing a podcast, you can't really see that.
About 60, 70 centimeters.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of an object that would be about that size, bigger than a basketball.
About a Gatorade bucket, something like that. A little smaller.
Yeah, maybe a little smaller than a Gatorade bucket, like the kind you're thinking, like dumping on the coach at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Maybe like half of that, right? Like
okay.
Yeah, half a Gatorade bucket's worth of potentially giant spill. That's what we're talking about. And so obviously, if it is real, as in if it contains bone and was actually if it's a real head, then yeah, it's a hell of a discovery, right? And then you'd have to ask all these questions, which I'm already asking about, ancient mythologies and how much of them actually are what we used to think of as mythology, and how many of them are something more like legends, which actually have some kind of a basis.
All right, shouts out Pavel. Is that good? I've been hearing this giant stuff too. There's so many little. It reminds me of like Pokemon or something. All these different mummy variations. Apparently, there's fairy mummies now too in the mix. Like mummies. Have you heard this?
Yeah. See, this kind of stuff was predicted by like Edgar Casey. Like this guy talked about how the Earth back before the end of the Ice Age was like very different. And there was all these different creatures around that looked just like us, little things, fairies, whatever you could imagine. They were like running around, and it really sounded like Lord of the Rings, like this deep history, like what Theosophists or whatever would call like the Lemurian era, where like Atlantis was in the mix and stuff. It's like, well, that stuff was around, but like what else was around during that time? And yeah, there's theories. I mean, if you were to ask ChatGPT right now, how many other humanoid species have been here that we know of that aren't humans, and it'll tell you like 30, and that's a lot. That's a lot more than you'd think, right? It's a lot more than you'd think, and that's that's only what we know of so far. So these little fairies, these giants, we don't know where we're at on that scale. We could have been somebody else's giants, and then they wrote a bunch of stories, and then we adopted those stories into our own myths. That's possible as well.
You know what we got to get in the little clip thing that we could do here? We could just like click it. Is the I Love Lucy, like you got some splaining to do? Because I don't know, that energy just comes up so much in this conversation, right?
So for real.
All right, well, let's continue along here. But yeah, so some good mummy stuff there. Definitely probably gonna have to do multiple episodes about it at some point. Maybe we'll get King and Megan to come on or something. Let's continue along.
Mufon is the mutual.
So honestly, I kind of was out of the loop on this. I just kind of saw this photo going around. I really haven't watched the episode yet. I was meaning to clip it for the channel and stuff, but it seems like there's already been a lot of back and forth, right? So I guess we got to just like jump in the pool or whatever. But let's watch this. This was a photo that Patrick from Vetted, friend of the show, someone from Mufon showed it. So this was his little teaser trailer he put out for his episode about it. Let's just watch it.
UFO Network. According to Wikipedia, it's a U.S.-based nonprofit organization composed of civilian volunteers who study reported UFO sightings. It is one of the oldest and largest organizations of its kind, established in 1969, claiming more than 4,000 members worldwide, with chapters and representatives in more than 43 countries and all 50 United States. My guest today is Ron James. He is Mufon's Director of Media Relations, but he's also a filmmaker. He released a documentary narrated by Matthew Modine last year called The Accidental Truth. And he's here to talk about his next film, The Next Accidental Truth, and the Mufon Symposium that's coming up in July, where they will reveal 4 different new UFO cases.
I'm only going to show these for a minute, and please don't read it because these are all copyrighted. I'm just giving a little teaser for the film. Father supposedly shot a mothership. This is supposed frame from a gun camera footage shot of the saucer being shot down. This is supposedly the crash scene.
So that last one is the one that's kind of been making the rounds. I don't know if the other two have or not. There's so much stuff going on, and it kind of felt like a slow time, but damn, there's a lot of stuff happening. So this image, people are saying, "Oh, look it, that's it." And honestly, I haven't looked into it enough to know. But then I saw, right, and then after like a day or two, people were saying that these were stick figurines or like little toy figurines. What is that? But yeah, so honestly, I don't feel informed enough to have an opinion either way. I know Arthur, who I like his opinion on things, his take on things. He was like, these aren't an exact match. It feels almost like a fake debunk being worked out right now.
Yeah, I get that vibe. I get the fake debunk vibe. Number one, I would need to see evidence of what these miniatures look like out of the box, right?
That's a good point, right? In the
I don't even know if it's a real product. You know what I'm saying? It looks like one, but I could do this. Give me 2 seconds in Midjourney, and I could produce this and then write whatever I wanted to on it and make it look real. Like, so we need to see proof.
A fun project.
Also, if they do exist, then grab it and then recreate this image, which wouldn't be hard because you have like some probably hubcap size thing or bigger. You know what I mean? Like a kid pool or something. And then you got
someone overlaying it there.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is interesting. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe we'll get art
sitting down.
Yeah, it's very strange. Very strange. But also the AI thing goes the other way too, right? Like you could AI fake these the crash retrieval type photos.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like Yuri Geller showing those like clearly AI old photos of like a giant cockroach in I don't even know where, like Siberia or something. That was hilarious. Yeah, was there something else you were saying about this photo earlier? Or well, it's in the Pacific Northwest allegedly. I feel
Yeah,
like
this is Central Oregon. They said it's Central Oregon, dude. For real. Oh,
You know the year?
uh-oh. Courage First with the $10 dono. Matching Monday. Let's go.
Nowadays I'm all about the fatty. You better get some. Too busy hating, ain't getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty. Ain't getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty. Yeah, they ain't ready for.
I hate Skyfire News.
Hell yeah.
LOL. So it's in Oregon. Do you know the year?
I think it was the 50s, but I'll double check.
What does the chat think about this photo? Thank you, Courage First.
The focal depth is interesting, right? The people are out of focus, the craft's in focus, the tree in the background's in focus. It could easily be miniatures, right? But someone tried to do this. They took their time to try to make this photograph, and I would assume it would be vetted before it landed into the MUFON symposium kind of thing. But I can also see how it could be miniatures. But again, would never have considered that unless I saw these this box of them right here. So, you know, it'd be interesting to find out when we know the first appearance of this photo was, and maybe what if the photo predated the release of these toys, and the toys are
Yeah,
proven
exactly.
real.
That was on my to-do list. It was just to kind of like reverse image search. Psychotronic X says, this pic looks like miniatures to me. Arden, our lovely mod, says, fake in my opinion. Wild says, looks fake, so it's real.
That's the rule.
UAP Library says, definitely no miniatures. Look at the root of the tree. And treetop miniatures aren't that good, like at all. So UAP Library, you think it's a real photo? Interesting. I mean,
Well, I think it's real. I think it's a real photo, but the miniatures could be on like a little dirt hill, and that UFO could be an inflatable thing, and that tree could be real. The tree line could be real, but it's just miniatures on dirt. Again, there's a bunch of negative space we can't really see, but that tree's fucking huge if it's a normal tree, and those people are real sized. So.
yeah, Compatible says, personally, I hate seeing content that may be fake. Tired of people creating content to fool people. And like you said, too, but like the fact that this guy's kind of like part of the whole MUFON rollout, and MUFON is, people have mixed feelings about it. I'd say overall, glad they exist. Definitely been some weird things along the line, but they definitely held it down during like the 70s and whatnot, when like the government wasn't publicly looking at this stuff and like society was demeaning it, although they probably were infiltrated. But like, yeah, this guy's a high up MUFON guy, right? Kind of talking about these in a very serious manner.
Yeah, using them to tease his whole event. So
that's the weird thing, though, too, right? The whole like, I don't want to show you the photo because it's in my documentary. That's a little sus, right?
Yep, that's MUFON playing MUFON, right? Like they play the access game too, probably, and they know how to build hype. They've been doing it for a long
Ben
time.
Overridge says the mini set was released in 1984. Terrestrial Material says, why would the soldier be sitting facing away from the craft? Doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, some good combo on that. I guess we'll just watch and see where it goes. I'm just gonna wait and see. Okay, here we go. Now on to the UFO log, which Tupa won. Hell yeah, let's go. Do we have a good thing we can put for that? Let's see.
Damn!
Wild. This was a crazy contest. Red, why don't you introduce it? How'd this happen? How'd this come about?
Okay, so this was basically the TLDR of this is that it was a contest, and we'll take it in like layers of TLDR. Broad picture, it was a contest held on Twitter for X Spaces, where basically the prompt is like, what is disclosure and like what is happening, UFOs and disclosure, 10 to 15 minutes of an X Space monologue about it. And then there's going to be a second round where from the first group, the top 8 would be picked, and then the 8 that were chosen would go on to give a 20 or 30-minute monologue.
Yep.
And it was basically started by this guy named Steve Austin. And I think I have a little clip of him talking here. Let's see. But there's been all this controversy, right? Because you won it, and people love to hate you.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, I would have,
So that's Steve Austin on the bottom right there, the guy who kind of put it all on. And so before we listen to what he says about the competition, the reason he wanted to do this, from my understanding, and like how this all kind of came together was after the Jason Sand space, you know what I mean? That kind of really put UFO Twitter spaces on the map within the greater ufology sphere, I think.
Right.
But also a lot of people, I'm actually surprised at how many people just listen to spaces that we're always in, but never talk, but actually just kind of enjoy it for easy listening. I think after the Jason Sand space, Steve Austin wanted to kind of elevate, I would say, or just kind of show that spaces let's make an environment where more whistleblowers come. Let's make an environment that's friendlier. That's, you know what I mean? In my opinion, it was really well intentioned. He apparently is a crypto millionaire, apparently. So he comes in, he's after the Jason Sand space, he starts coming around spaces, and he's yeah, I'm thinking about doing this competition. I want to see the community do well, and I think the Jason Sand space was awesome, blah blah blah. And then here's him talking about the competition a little bit more.
$1 million to and I would prefer to do it on the grassroots of the community in these spaces. But how to do it, I'm open. I do know, I feel very strongly that I would prefer to donate to a group of people, a wide cross-section from the community, and then have people make submissions to those people, and then those people who sort of know who everybody is, at least collectively, they decide. That would be my preference to do it.
Megan, and then
We could hear what
Dewar,
Megan says.
I think was the order.
Yeah, so I definitely understand where you're coming from with concern about division within the community or whatever. I was kind of thinking, since it seems like we're operating somewhat in the interest.
Yeah, that's where that clip ends. But yeah, he kind of wanted to be low key too, I think, because he didn't want this to be a divisive thing, which is hilarious and ironic and actually sad, because I do truly believe that this dude's intention was to try and bring the community together and kind of elevate spaces and maybe give some money or some prizes to people who are doing good things for the community, right? And his competition, a bunch of people came out and did monologues that were pretty insightful that had never done one before, right? It really inspired a lot of people to just kind of take a risk. It was
Absolutely.
I thought it was beautiful for a while. Everyone was doing their little thing. It was really cool.
It was. I thought it was a really positive, motivational kind of thing. It was cool. It really did seem to kind of come on from the heels of the Jason Sand space, which kind of validated spaces and liberated a little bit of the narrative control. Right now, there's some rogue elements in the mix. Things are kind of more fluid than they were before. So I was actually inspired to enter because I saw people entering that number one, I saw the homies, right? Reptile, the people I'd expect to see Astral, right? But then I saw a lot of other people entering as well. I'm like, you know what? I've been doing spaces for a long time. I always say that I was one of the first people to do them. And I thought that it would look it would not be good leadership just to never to not enter, And then so I did, and then I didn't expect to get into the finals. And the finals were made up of a bunch of heavy hitters. We had terrestrial material in there, Astral, Reptile Hybrid, Caruso, Brian Johnson.
Yeah, you know what? I got a slide for that, so let's go there. So this was the winners, right? And on the previous slide too, it said, what was it? I think first place gets $5,000, second place gets $3,000, Third place gets $2,000, and the remaining people get what, like $200 or something like that. So our very own Tuba ended up winning first place. So on the top right here, we got the, I guess I should do in order. On the bottom left, we have from the pool of like, I think it was like 30 or 40 people that did it, the top 8. And then from those 8, there was like a community voting type thing. There was a 2-tiered kind of voting thing for who won. But then, yeah, Tuba ends up winning. Brian Johnson gets second place. His speech was really cool. It was, he's kind of in the, like, this is all a psyop for the future China war camp these days. I think he's kind of been disenchanted with some of the disclosure stuff, as we've seen happen many times before. So that was cool. And then Jonathan Crusoe, he's a showman, right? He's really good at like delivering stuff, and he says some pretty interesting things. So, but of course, you know, Tuba has all his haters, and people were pissed about this.
People did not like me taking home the W there. They and to each their own. To each their own. But wild. I loved these spaces that these guys did. I thought that all the finalists did great. The shit was awesome. It was cool to hear because these were like basically like explain. You have 30 minutes to explain your assessment of what's happening with disclosure. Where do you see it going? Like, that's a big question. But for people who talk about the topic or research it often, you know, they're going to have some strong opinions. And of course, everyone brought them, right? From Reptile Hybrid, you got to hear basically the entire rundown of all these different species that might be interacting with us, where they come from, what they're doing here, right? You got
Logan's was awesome, by the way, too.
Logan's was badass.
I was pissed he didn't make it on the top or anything.
Dude, and then while that competition's going on and he didn't make it, he has like Jason Sands in his space again. Like, he's got like, you know, he's breaking news like during. It's like, okay, still Logan's still setting the pace for us. You know what I mean? He's setting the bar pretty high. But yeah, that was wild.
Because Tuba won, there's all these conspiracies now. Oh, okay. I guess we should just play this clip. Let me see. So, friend of the show, UFO Pirate, clipped this. I guess we'll just watch it for context. And as some kind of like, so before the judges were announced, right, people were already, and I want to just reiterate that this dude, in my opinion, had good intentions. And I think there was a lot of positive energy there for a minute, but like, it just kind of goes to show, in my opinion, this whole like control system within this community, that like somebody could literally come here and be like, hey, I want to invest in the community to like be better, to get some more like educated or like thought out spaces, and kind of get spaces to a spot on Twitter where like it's just a welcoming, good information flow thing. So let's see. I guess we'll share this out. So this is the clip that UFO Pirate and their little groupies are. So yeah, they started saying first that like, first they were saying that it was all a scam, that it wasn't real. Then they were saying that like it was all a PR move for Tupa, that it was all fake, that no one's getting paid. And then now they're saying that it was the vote with the judges were stacked with Tupa, even though there was a community poll vote element. But let's just watch the clip so we can see what they're talking about.
Assume not. I don't know. I don't. So you're saying that you're worried that people who actually submitted were also judges. That would be a problem, for sure. That's why I specifically did not submit shit.
No, my question was, how do you think people would feel if they found out that the person running the UFO Talk radio account was in the competition?
Based on hearing this stuff, I would say 60% would find an issue with it, 30% would say no issue with it.
I think there would be a group that wouldn't care, and then there would be a group that would care.
The issue
what would be the
if
issue?
I may, real quickly,
What would be
the issue that I'm having here is this is going to create more confusion potentially when it was intended to do just the opposite. And if this spawns a bunch of talk that somehow there's another insider conspiracy nonsense, whatever it may be, I hope the facts come out on this very soon so everybody has clarity.
You're right, Election. These people, whoever they are, when they do this finals and they're going to pay out the people, they should come out and say who they are, why they did it, how they judged it, like be transparent. Because If it's still just as this big fucking secret thing and we don't know anything about it, then I'll never have anything to do with it again. I'm hoping, because like I said, I never got really any information from these people.
So what's the conspiracy behind that clip?
Yeah, I honestly don't even get it. They're just kind of like clipping these things and be like, see, it was all planned and orchestrated.
That's fun.
It's kind of hilarious too, because it's kind of feeding into this feedback loop of like, I think some of the people who are judges like don't want to be harassed, right? And there's clearly now some like animosity built up amongst some people.
And this is the shitty thing, is like, if I'm good at something and I do it well and I win something, or I get any acknowledgement or receive any success, the people who acknowledged what I did are now at risk for harassment. Like, they've made it very clear, like that this hatred goes pretty far. These guys are pretty sad about this. But yeah, the competition was close. It wasn't a runaway win. I think that it really truly was a good one. Based on what I heard from Brian Johnson, I'm surprised. I was surprised at the outcome. I'm still in kind of disbelief about the whole thing. I didn't know anything about it. I kind of I talked a little shit about it at first, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to participate at first. And then I saw people taking it seriously, and that kind of that was touching. And I was like, okay.
There is something to be said. It is kind of, I could see where people are like, I could see both sides of it, right? Because Steve Austin, I think, didn't want to, he didn't want to make it about him, right? And also there's this element of judges don't want to be harassed, but people do kind of want transparency. So I do kind of get that, but I feel like I did all I could to promote this stuff. Some people are like, I didn't even know about it. It's like, I don't know what else. We talked about it on Skyfire. We even posted about it from the Skyfire account. It came up plenty of times in spaces, and everyone saw someone doing one. This idea that you didn't know about it ahead of time, come on.
They were all retweeted by everybody. It was like one of the more positive movements I've seen. And it was people putting their hearts on on a recorded space, and then trying to consolidate these ideas and then make it cohesive. And then a lot of people tried, dude. This shit was awesome. And I can't wait for the next one, whatever it may be. And if it's something I want to participate in, I might. But I mean, as far as I know, I think what Steve Austin did, and I know nothing about Steve Austin, and I purposefully didn't look into it. I was worried that, it's a rabbit hole, right? So I just stayed away from the whole kind of structure of the whole thing. And now I see it as something that really worked. It worked. What we got to do, Red, is get the finalists all in a show together. We should all just talk about what we think the phenomena is, like a round table. Not about the competition. I mean, fuck all that. But I mean, just about what we think, because clearly the way we were able to talk about it got us into these finalists, right? People liked what they were hearing. So I think it would be cool to kind of do a long form.
Yeah, that would be
stream.
Cool. Because there was a lot of good Unity vibes. Here. Let me just finish this up before we get to that. Or actually, no. Fuck it. Wag Boss says, in my opinion, the cake alien Nazca are BS. Differential orientation of the hand bones bilaterally. The Atacama mummy may be real. There's similar examples from Russia and Nevada. Greer's tested by Gary's lab. Thank you.
So nowadays I'm all about the fatty. You better get some. Too busy hating, ain't getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty. Ain't getting none. Me, I'm all about the fatty.
Another one from Courage First. Happy Pride, ATF.
Okay.
So nowadays I'm all about the fatty. You better.
I love that. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you guys.
So nowadays.
Didn't mean to click that the second time.
So on the top right, it's my favorite conspiracy is that first we see people trying to identify Steve Austin and they're calling him a scammer or grifter, which I don't even get. Also, it's hilarious when they thought that we did it all because I don't have 10 grand to just be thrown around like that. But we got this one. People also think that maybe Keemstar was behind it all to boost Tupa's image after the Discord PR.
See, that's a fun conspiracy. Dude, Courage First is dropping mad donation. Dude, much appreciated, Courage First.
Make sure you're not glitching Courage First, but thank you. We do appreciate it.
The double up got us a little concerned.
So then, so I don't know. I think it was cool. Oh, here we go. We got Lue reviews.
Wow.
Reacting to Tupa winning. Here we go.
Well, I'm kind of glad I missed it, but I am shocked that somebody spent 10 G's. Tupa Cabra made $5,000. That is nuts, dude. Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. I can see why the community is pissed off, why they don't know who the judges are, because if 4 out of the 6 judges are buddies with the guru that is Tupa Cabra.
Oh my god.
The guru of dirt.
Oh my god, this is so weird.
Yeah, it's like, dude, it's oh man, it's such a weird community. $5,000. Well, I guess he doesn't have to find any editing work for a good month or two.
I hate Skyfire News.
Yeah, man.
Oh, man, that's great. Good for him. I mean, shit, dude, get $5,000 from a sucker.
One of the judges gave him a 1 out of 10, though. One of the 6 judges obviously wasn't a Tupa Cabra. They gave him a 1, and he still won first place.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that probably means. I mean, he is a good bullshitter. That's for
Thanks,
sure.
Lou.
He can sit there and bullshit with the best of them.
Thanks.
And he does that dance. He does that dance where he
still doing it.
You see all the Skyfire bookmarks?
Supports absolute scumbags like Ashton Forbes and still weasels his way into every other conversation out there. Because he's a weasel. He's a slippery little eel. Like, yeah, it's whatever, man. If that's what the community wants as its hero, and is it a slippery little eel? Like, yeah, it's whatever, man. If that's what the community wants as its hero, and is it as its standard, I don't think it's going to get very far.
There's Lou supporting us like always.
Thanks, Lou. Much appreciated. I love the support. Wild. Damn, that's crazy. I knew the people are going to be hating.
Wow.
But he's really sad about this. Well, it is what it is. I think that
He should have done one.
Yes.
Like, I was telling Shane during the entire time.
There was no debunker spaces.
There needed to be, I think, multiple. But they didn't do it. Hopefully, I think there's going to... Well, who knows what's going to happen now? Because the kind of reaction to it, I think, is not what Steve Austin wanted. In fact, it's probably the exact opposite of what he wanted.
Sorry, Steve. Steve, just so you know, sorry, man. We're going to pay it forward. I don't know. That's fucking crazy. It sucks. But I think a lot of people out there really liked the competition.
I've heard rumors the next one's a documentary one. So that would be lit. And yeah. Oh, and so I was I did help just kind of Steve just talk to him and get more information. And I did do the first round judging, but honestly I first saw this I just saw that people were going to be dumb about it. So I was I'm probably not going to do the second round of judging. So yeah, there's my involvement on there. Whistleblower, Red Panda Koala, trying to
blowing the whistle out here,
trying to help the community, having to listen to don't get me wrong, it is awesome, right, that everyone did it, but when you're having to listen to that many of them, bro, it was kind of tedious. And
yeah, it was a lot. That rich guy listened to all of them. Fucking wild.
And now they're saying Rich, and I like Rich, and I think you do too, but now they're saying Rich is a Tupa fanboy, always has been.
Listen, yeah, all the conspiracies, like I said, my apologies to everybody who is part of the competition now. Thank you for voting honestly. Even the person who voted me a 1. Like I said, it wasn't a runaway win. You're right. I was 1 point ahead of Brian Johnson. Everyone had their strengths. It was a close competition. It just so happened to be that it landed where it landed. Now, because of where it landed, everyone involved with it is now part of a conspiracy and whatnot. But you're going to find out that Red and I have always been talking about this group of people and what they say and do, and the depths of depravity that they'll go to, just to slander and bullshit and intimidate. So we've been trying to warn the community about this. We've been trying to explain exactly how it goes down and predict why it goes down. And this kind of stuff is one of those things where it stirs the snakes, right?
And in my opinion, there's people on I don't want to say that side, but there's people who turn a blind eye to a lot of this stuff for access, in my opinion, who were part of the competition and did well and stuff like that too. Like, it wasn't, this narrative is just kind of crazy. And it's, like I said, it's, the biggest part is that it's kind of sad, because I think there was an intention there, and I think for a minute there, that intention was lived up to. And honestly, I think overall still lived up to that. There's just a few naysayers out there, of course, right? Because you were going to win. Honestly, I think it's like the universe trolling the UFO community or something.
Dude, I don't know what this like bullshit thing is. Like, I do research. I don't read a lot, but I do a lot of research. And like the spaces that I talked about is something that I've been doing like probably 50, 60 hours of like research and editing and stuff too. Like, so I felt pretty secure in what I was saying and what I was talking about. If you guys want to check it out, you know, go check it out. Go to the UFO Talk Radio account.
Thing you don't research while bookmarking all the Skyfire clips, but also taking the extra time to download them so that you don't have to say thank you, Skyfire. Can't make it up.
Thanks, Lou. Thanks, Shane. Thanks for backing me up there, Shane. The friend of the show. I think we haven't played his song enough recently. That's the real problem.
We'll play it on the outro.
Yeah.
We got a few more things to get through. These ones should be quicker. Let's see. Boom. So this happened. This was Lue Elizondo and Philip Mantle. Philip Mantle's an old school UFO researcher.
Right.
He's done a lot of work on the Pascagoula abduction, I believe, which was in the 1970s. Maybe we'll get him on at some point. Why not? Let's reach out to him and just get his like take on that whole thing.
I would love that.
There was this interesting exchange between him and Elizondo, and I will say, so it starts with this. Philip Mantle says, "I've been in touch with Elizondo's publisher, and they refused to produce a copy of his books. Security review, saying it's a private matter between Elizondo and the DoD. BS. Elizondo, let's see a copy. At Lue Elizondo, at George Knapp, at Ross Coulthart, hashtag UFO Twitter." I think that BS is kind of maybe what was a little much. I'm curious how this would have been reacted to if there wasn't that BS in there. Because those are kind of a little bit of a confrontation. You're saying bullshit. Like, right? To tell someone bullshit, that's a little confrontational. But then Lue Elizondo says, "I owe you nothing, period. Blocked, period." Which, okay, that's fine, whatever. A little dramatic, right? He's a theatrical guy too, for sure.
Is this what Daniel Sheehan was talking about? He said that there was a guy trying to sue Lue Elizondo.
That's CalCorp and Arlene, who we have to get on to at some point. It's just running a show, guys, is a lot. It takes a lot. So that was interesting. And then but because Lue did this, right? And that's the thing. It's like he knows he has this power, in my opinion. It kind of just like unleashed the mob on Philip Mantle, in my opinion. Especially with this one. So after that happened, Lue quote tweeted this tweet from someone that says, "Lue doesn't owe shit to anyone, not to Philip, not to me, not to anybody. Lue has given enough for this country." And then Lue says, "Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it more than I can express." So like kind of goes to show, in my opinion, like when you one publicly call out Philip Mantle and then you quote tweet this tweet that's kind of like Lue doesn't owe shit to anyone. It's kind of like, okay, Lue Elizondo, all the Lue Elizondo little fanatics, this is the energy that we're going to respond to the question about the Dobson review. And then what was even more interesting was that John Greenwald, friend of the show, says, "I agree with you. It's not a publisher's place to release that. However, in the interest of transparency, do you plan to show the Dobson review process on your book's review with the DoD?" And then Lue Elizondo says, "John, yes, perhaps after my book's release." Right? So it's like, that's what I'm saying, the BS thing in the original Philip Mantle one. But like, he basically says yes to this initial sentiment later when Greenwald brings it up, right? So it almost feels like a nothing burger of like, well, why were you so pissed? And like, quote tweeting this guy being like, Lue doesn't owe shit to anyone.
I think I have a suspicion as to why he publicly said that, you know what I mean, and took a stand against the guy for asking questions. I have a guess. I don't really want to say it here, but we do got a super chat. Greer's Atacama mummy looks a lot like a Loshenka from Russia. It's commonly seen set of birth defects, Nolan Lab, or it's real, Greer's assertion. Yeah, right?
I'm definitely going to take a note on that for the mummy episode. And if you're on Twitter or something, hit me up with that stuff. Because, I don't know. There's that one, too. There's the, I guess, should we, let's not bounce around. Let's save it for the mummy one, for when we do a mummy thing. But I think the Mexican mummies look like that weird, like, Siberian ice alien, which I don't know. Has it ever been debunked?
Looks so, well, I mean, it looks so much like it. It's like this the same model or something. Like, it's crazy. And as far as I know, no debunkage on that I could come across. I haven't really dug deep. I mean, I always look at stuff like that and go, okay, when, I'll wait for the verdict to come back on that one because it looks like a dummy, right? But then, you
The
always
bad days, I'm all about the Fetty. You better get some.
had to give him a little bit of it. But yeah, here we go.
These things, I don't know. When we do our deep dive, we'll get to the bottom of this one, but they do look hella similar. But I think he might be talking about something else because he's talking about the Atacama one. All right, back to Elizondo. So yeah, just kind of a weird sentiment. And I think it is, John kind of elaborates further that like this whole Dopser stuff, right? It's been such a part of the conversation. I am very curious to see like how within the confines that Lue Elizondo is allowed to show, like how does that process work, right? Because Dopser definitely seems like one of the main mechanisms, not the main, but like definitely a mechanism of covering stuff up, right? Even like non-UFO stuff. So I would be curious. And yeah, so like I said, I wonder if Philip Mantle didn't put the BS thing, how this exchange would have went down. But as you can imagine, after these from Elizondo, you can go look at Philip Mantle's tweets since this happened, and it's all just full of the acolytes being like, "You're a piece of shit. Fuck you. Lue doesn't know you shit. How dare you insult whistleblowers whose lives are being threatened?" Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, so it goes. Okay, let's continue along. I think we're at the last story, but it's like 2. Oh, this was interesting. So Congressman Burchett spoke out about the threats against Lue Elizondo, right? So I'll just read this. This was from a Fox News article. So it's pretty mainstream, national coverage, talking about the death threat against Lue Elizondo that we covered probably, what is that, like a month and a half ago now? That Danny Sheehan later said was like, I don't know if that's necessarily what he thinks it is. Anyways, it goes. The congressman and Elizondo had dinner around the time Elizondo made it known he was being threatened. He didn't detail what the threats were or who made them, but Burchett expressed his anger and said he's alarmed. Okay, Lue is a dear friend of mine, and I take any threat against anybody seriously, especially against friends and somebody that has given so much to this country and to this issue, UFOs. So I'm very much aware of it, and I'm very much alarmed. I'm pursuing every avenue I can to get to the bottom of it. Now, what struck me about this, right, and of course, if anyone's actually being threatened, you know what I mean, clear, obviously disavow, like, I don't want to see, like, anybody die. That's horrible. But it's interesting that Burchett says, Lue didn't give me the details on what the threats were or who made them. Isn't that kind of like a key piece of information missing that I feel like Burchett at least should have gotten, right? I can maybe understand not sharing that information with the public if you're really feeling threatened, which I personally am having doubts about. But to hide it from Burchett or not tell Burchett everything when he's also, it says here, he's looking into it and he's very much alarmed and pursuing every avenue. Like, how can you pursue every avenue if you don't have like all the information from the person making the claim? You know what I mean? Isn't that weird?
Very weird, very perceptive. Red, seriously, like, yeah, there's some contradictory statements here, and it just looks like he's trying to do right by a connect that he has. Lue's a very dear friend of mine. He just briefed me very quickly about this thing that he's been going through. I haven't really he didn't really detail
death
it.
threats, like this is a very severe thing, and like I said, if this is actually happening, like, I think the more info is how you protect people, right? Like, and at the very least, like I said, like, okay, don't give it to Skyfire News, but at least tell Burchett if he's out here in Washington trying to make moves to protect you, like, he's got to have the information. It's just so weird, and that was already like a month and a half ago, and then they put it on the mainstream media, and like he still hasn't gotten any more info. You know what I mean? It screams manipulation, in my opinion, because when people put these things out, now you can't question them, right? Or else you're questioning someone getting death threats. You know what I mean? And we've heard that language, that exact language used by Gary the Brave. We won't get into it now, but the literal, like, I was told that Manny 503 and the documentary they made about Lue was attacking Lue's family, and I was told to do all this stuff. And when the dust all settled and the lights came on in the bar, it wasn't what I thought it was. So I just find it interesting that to this level, to me, this feels like deception. For him to not tell him the full details, and that's supposed to be his boy, and then to have his boy out here parading his talking points without giving him the full details, it feels deceptive. I don't know. Okay.
I agree. I think you called it.
Thank you. Okay, this is the last thing I think. Okay, so Matt Ford's been getting closer to Lue Elizondo, and again, I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing that these disclosure people have their trusted media outlets, right? It's good, I think, that they have a place where they can go get their stuff out. I just find it weird when there's this overlap of like harassment and like incitement. And honestly, Matt Ford, if you're watching this, I'm really not even coming at you from a place of like, I feel like some people hate you. I'm really trying to like warn you with some of this stuff of like, dude, like maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but I would look into some of the other people who have been in your exact shoes and like what happened with them and why they're no longer in those shoes. Primarily, I'm talking about Luis Jimenez, who we just showed, right? He's been psyoped by Lue Elizondo and never been the same since. And then Stephen Greenstreet, who's also been like psyoped by Lue Elizondo and also, I would say, has been a very different person since his flip, right? So, let's see. So yeah, Matt got the official. Oh yeah, so this is Matt came on the scene like a year and a half ago, and I feel like they've been kind of testing him and like pushing the limits a little further. And I think they're to the point now where they realize like Matt.
Well, where'd he come from? What's his background?
We did a great episode on this, which I recommend people watch. But he comes from the political world. He basically was a political action committee, a bunch of anti-Trump stuff. I would honestly say it was almost kind of like a. Well, I don't want to hate on him. We do have different political opinions, but I do respect people expressing their civic duties or whatever. But it almost felt like a knockoff Lincoln Project kind of thing, right?
Yes, it did.
So then, over the past like year and a half, people have definitely been feeding him information. Like, he's the one who first said the thing about Kirkpatrick having the secret committee of like gatekeepers, and when Kirkpatrick was asked about that, Kirkpatrick specifically referenced not naming them because of the harassment from the UFO community, which again I don't think is random. That when he brought up a conspiracy first floated by Matt Ford, which was actually probably first floated by Gary Nolan or Elizondo to Matt Ford, he went right to harassment. What else have they done? He was really big on the Wikipedia thing, which I think there's a lot of validity to there, but there's also some sketch stuff with it. But also, like, Matt Ford makes T-shirts for King Milk Bar, which I don't understand. And then we've seen it progressing, and I think it's been culminating where recently Matt Ford got the exclusive on Lue Elizondo's death threat, right? The whole, like, my life's in danger. I'm not going to tell the police. I'm not going to tell Congress, but I'm going to tell you, Matt Ford. I need you to get this message out. Like, you get what I'm saying, of like slowly raising the stakes. And now he had him doing a hit piece on Stephen Greenstreet that Lue Elizondo tagged, or I don't think he tagged every member of Congress, but he said every member of Congress needs to watch this. And remember, we constructed that.
Strange.
It was total misrepresentation of
absolutely.
what happened.
Absolutely. I mean, you even asked his lawyer about what happened, right? So what I think you're saying is that if Lue's enemies become your enemies, you're more in line, you're more likely to be getting closer to Lue. And by the time you're really close with Lue, I mean, you're actually his mouthpiece. You're expressing the things Lue wants to say. Like, it's almost as if Lue befriends people specifically because they have a platform, right? Or he gets people who like talk to him. He helps them build a platform. Right, people that you know that you're going to have loyalty, right? Their loyalty, like that, and then you want to give those people who are loyal to you, you want to give them positions and lock them in. It's kind of like like it is what it is, right? But we're seeing it, and we kind of called it out too. I mean, it just look what happened to Lue, like you said, Lue Jimenez, same fucking thing. And then if you go back even further to like the podcast Purge, right, where Lue was befriending all these different podcasters and making their show good by being on them, and then like all of a sudden cut like 90% of them off because they all kind of pieced together something that they were being played against one another, and then that just kind of got washed under the rug. And now we're here where like only approved assets are allowed to talk to him, and then they become his mouthpiece, even going so far as to taking a phone call from him during a live stream, which I think is crazy.
Which also shouts out Thomas Fessler. His whistleblower arc is going to be amazing. I feel for him that he has not been invited out here to Wyoming, and I feel like he's done a lot of dirty work for Lue, and it just goes to show, like, isn't it kind of messed up that Thomas Fessler hasn't been out here after everything he's done for Lue? Is that just me? I don't know.
I mean, this is but it's going out there kind of cultish. I mean, you studied the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Like, what's this?
And that's the other thing. Has Lue ever talked about? If anyone in the chat knows, why does he? Is it just because like Wyoming's kind of cheap land and that's just like the nearest landmark, or do you think? I feel like he had to have chosen that because of Close Encounters, right? Because this is a key point in the Close Encounters with the Third Kind movie. This Devil's Tower right there in the background, and we've seen plenty of people. It's almost like a pilgrimage, right? It's almost like a ceremony, right? It helps. It's different, I feel like, than if he just lived like in an apartment in LA. It's like you're gonna make a pilgrimage out here, and we're gonna hike, and we're gonna see this really beautiful landmark that's like a pinnacle of like ufology. Like this is the largest monument on Earth to ufology, in my opinion. Right? I feel like that's the first statement. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's very like understated though. Like it just happens to be like part of the central figure, right, to the film, to one of the biggest films, if not the most important film about UFOs in modern times, right? And so like it's almost as if, because I haven't heard of any other cults or anything like that going around this landmark for any reason, right? I've heard people say that it's a tree stump, whatever, right? But then you got like Lue, and where my instinct goes is that they wanted to borrow the mythology built by Steven Spielberg and maybe some insider information, right? And then to make it so that it's even more important.
I think so too, yeah.
You know why I think that is? Because of the stories that I hear from people like Jeremy McGowan about the kind of stuff that like Lue says behind like closed doors. And I'm not like, oh, he's like super creepy or anything, but no, but like kind of like definitely about appearances. And it seems like he's not against manipulating somebody and manipulating people with like little tricks like that in order to
we should do a McGowan episode soon, even though he doesn't talk to us. We could just read through his articles, because these stories are really important for people to understand and for Matt Ford to understand. Matt Ford, if you're listening, read Jeremy McGowan's articles if you have not. Ironically, you might think I'm like hating on you, but I feel like I'm looking out for you more than maybe some other people in your circle who don't want you to read that stuff.
Matt Ford is a propagandist for the Democratic Party.
Oh yeah, also he is a lighting technician too, and his lighting does look great on his show.
Great lighting. You look huge on your show. Great lighting. Cool shirt too. That's a cool shirt.
And it's cool, like take the family out there, the pilgrimage to Milu. And bro, like don't get it twisted. Like there is a point in time where me and Tupa definitely would have been like so over the top, like Tupa especially, right? You were kind of in the mix there for a minute where you would have been so cheesy and so corny out there.
I would have seen something like this and thought, oh, you guys need a camera guy out there. You guys need like someone to film that. Like that's where my mind would have went, right? Like just to like, but yeah, we're over those days. Those days are over. And that's good. That's good, because looking at this from the outside, looking in without the desire to participate at that level is very important. I think,
and with everything we know now too, right? It's like I hate
absolutely.
that I can't look at this and just be like happy for them. It's like it just feels like there's some kind of weird maliciousness. There's some weird scheming going on. Like both of these people interact with the worst serial harasser in the community. You know what I mean?
Matt Ford said he doesn't just interact. Matt Ford said that he loves them. And he loves everything he does
about him, which I don't think he does anymore. But like, we haven't even made shirts for ourselves, let alone for some random person on the internet who like harasses people. You know what I mean? But let's continue. We're almost done here. We're on the last story here, but there's a few more pictures. So then they go to the bar after. This is what Matt Ford says.
For apple juice.
There is nothing like discussing UAP policy with Lue Elizondo and Minty Hyperspace. Many folks from national security that you've never heard of are working hard behind the scenes for UAP transparency. And that's what I was talking about earlier, bro. Like, information is a currency and a drug in this field. And the second you get a little bit, you feel like you got a little bit more than the Joe Schmo at home. Like, it just adds to, in my opinion, there's a lot of different, as I said, what was it? Ceremony or not ceremony?
No, what's it's ritual.
Ritual. There we go. Yes.
Right. Like, and this could be harmless, or it could be like dangerous. Like, you got Lue right there, and he looks like Jack Nicholson from like The Departed. You know what I mean? He's the one who's going to tell, you know, like, and look at Matt, like a little student, like a little baby bird. Look at him, being a perfect little student, just intently listening to the psyop, or what could potentially be a psyop. You know what I mean? And this is a story that's so, in my opinion, so damn easy to see, right?
There's concrete examples. It's not just like, I think this might happen.
Dude,
It's a,
bro,
like,
exactly. Like you see it so often, you can predict it, right? And we predicted Matt Ford's descent, and then what's going to happen is he's told these, you're actually kind of special, right? And the reason why we're telling you this is because, you know, it's clear that you're one of like the rare people that we actually need to be talking to. Like you are going to be part of disclosure, and you're going to see that, like, I'm going to start telling, you know, having you, you know what, Matt? You actually did pretty good today in the hike. Why don't you tell your audience this new statement from me? And like, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's just this weird
you know
currency.
What, Matt Ford, Congressman Eric Burleson said he likes Stephen Greenstreet's reporting and he wants to get in contact with them. We're going to need you to do a hit piece for disclosure, because Stephen Greenstreet's actually a gatekeeper.
Something I can link to Burchett. Something I can send him. Just make something, anything, and I'll just send him this thing, and he'll get the idea. And I'll tell him that you're my guy. And like, dude, now you have this like strict narrative control built on fear and access. That's the danger part I'm talking about. I'm not saying it's dangerous.
Don't freak out, but my life and my family are totally threatened, and I'm not going to go to the police, and I'm not going to tell Congressman Burchett, but I'm going to tell you, and I need you to help me get this message out, please. Like, it's important. You know what I mean? Like, it just feels.
Bro, how about the fact that we have? Okay, I'm gonna try to say this very clearly and hopefully intelligently. How about the fact that we have photographs and actual evidence, not just like sneaky like we have photographs of these guys celebrating the thing that we're talking about, this kind of narrative construction. And we have instances from people who've been right where Matt Ford is right now, who've said, hey, I was part of that. They asked me to do this fucked up shit. I backed out. Right? They wanted me to harass these people. They tried to convince me that I was psychic. All these weird head game psyop type things we always hear. So like, people, we talk about it and people go, you're a conspiracy theorist. There's no evidence for that. Yada yada. Okay. But then we get these accusations.
Right, let's jump around real quick. There we go.
Well, then we get these Then we get these accusations that like you and I are working for Susan Goff. Right, and you and I are like working for like so Peter Thiel.
No evidence.
No, zero evidence. There's nothing to ever suggest that. They're not conspiracy theorists for throwing these crazy accusations about these randos that I've never barely seen or heard of. But like, we can show you instance after instance, moment after moment, photo after photo, post after post, admission after admission of what's going on behind the scenes, and people want to. And they think they're going to be able to successfully call us the conspiracy theorists. Like, no way, dude. No way.
Want to give the quick TLDR on the left and right guy?
All right. So we got Lue Jimenez on the left-hand side right here. Now, Lue was a waiter, and a waiter in Hollywood, and also an actor. Don't get me wrong. But while he was waiting, he happened to look over and see Elizondo there. They got to talking, and Lue Jimenez decided, hey, I'm going to start a podcast. Lue, will you be my first guest? It's going to be about UFOs. So now Elizondo is like, yes, Jimenez, we're both Cuban. That's somehow like, this is all supposed to be random, okay? Then he started his podcast. Look how happy and kind of youthful and kind of like, you know, just a little healthier, bright. Look at that skin. Looks fine.
I haven't seen Lue Jimenez look that happy in like literal years.
And so Lue began to host a show with his most frequent guest and like collaborator, Lue Elizondo. So Lue Elizondo's raining gold on his guy's podcast. Lue, within a year, makes how much? Like $30,000 or some shit?
$30,000 or $40,000, yeah.
Oh my God. So $30,000 to $40,000 just on his YouTube channel alone, because people are super chatting the shit out of this dude, trying to get questions to Lue Elizondo and stuff. And so the show takes off. Well, then eventually, Lue's co-hosts discover that Elizondo is behind some sock puppet accounts that are leading the charge of harassment of people that they know. And I don't mean regular harassment. I mean the kind of shit that me and Red have gone through. if you've been following us at all, you know that this is a big part of this arc, this story, right? Like within ufology is this weird narrative control campaign, and the way that this narrative control stays afloat is because they silence anyone who talks about it. And like they'll go after your family, they'll go after your friends, they will go after your kids, your nieces, they will publicly try to humiliate you, they'll post your mom's criminal record. They did all this stuff to me. They continue to do it. And these are the people that Lue Elizondo follows, encourages, and I'm not making that up. We have the public posts, public tweets. You know, this person's been suspended from Twitter multiple times for harassment and abuse, keeps on coming back, violating the terms of service, but also being refollowed by Elizondo. Elizondo thought that King Milkfart stopped following him one time and asked Rob Heatherly to check on it because he thought that maybe King Milkfart had turned against him. So these guys are very active, Elizondo, very active, and Cahill, very active in knowing what's going on Twitter.
Sean Cahill interacts with King Milkfart. Sean Cahill, they're so lost in the sauce of that. He put out that tweet, remember? He was like, basically, John Greenwald, Stephen Greenstreet, and Susan Go need to check your router locations. Y'all are stanky. Like, y'all are looking up really gross. We're in your router. We're looking at your IP logs of what websites are going to. You know what I mean? Like, to say that publicly, bro. Think about what they're not doing publicly.
Well, that just shows you that they the kind of control that they think they have. The more you think about it, the more you realize that these guys aren't the rebel Jedi. They're the Sith. They're using deception, and they're always running around in twos. There's always the apprentice, and there's always the master. Like, look at how many times it's happened. Right?
So
There's all these. It's very weird.
Thing, they're on the outs. Lou Reviews gets harassed. Squidding gets harassed, hit with fake pedophile stuff. Has his mom analogously referred to as a whore. On the right, we have Jeremy McGowan. As I said, we got to do a Jeremy McGowan episode because his whole story is just, there's so many different things that we touch on that just happened like years before it happened to us, right? But he gets close to Lou. He was on the show and identified. He's a witness, an experiencer. He saw something in the 90s while in the military that was likely a UFO or some kind of strange test craft related to nuclear weapons, right? So in very many ways, like pretty similar to Jason Sands, right? Like these are just military dudes who have some maybe a little glimpse on the UFO stuff, maybe a little bit more or less involved with stuff than Jason Sands was, but still, right? Like Sean Cahill, for example, is also just that. He was a military witness to the Nimitz encounter, because he was on the ship as a sergeant of arms or something like that, right? But then after Jeremy McGowan backs out, and we're going to have to cover this in the whole episode, because apparently, like, as Chupa said, they were telling him he was psychic. They were telling him, they were lying about his truck to, like, HBO executives to, like, try and get a show. There was just all this weird stuff.
Actually, that's not a side point, okay? That's, like, a really big deal. And in my opinion, this is how, because I've been in a situation, if a lot of creative people have been in situations, maybe you have a camera, right? And somebody wants you for a thing, and they want to basically like use you for the thing you have. So they want to get you involved in the project somehow because they don't want to pay you what you're worth. Right. And so here you have Cahill and Elizondo shopping a television show off to networks without McGowan's like full knowledge. And when they go and shop it out, they're saying that they have a vehicle that has like $100,000 worth of tech equipment that can hunt down UFOs. And like their show goes from being about Lue to his show pitching. He's out there pitching a show about fucking McGowan's truck without McGowan knowing, and they think that, and they tell McGowan like, yeah, we're going to drive your truck all over the country. He's like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? Like, no. So they were like, there's this like manipulation and like a factor of being used that's in the mix too, which is strange, and it speaks to character. Again, this is somebody's account. This allegedly happened, right? Like, but when all these things start to add up, and then honestly, if you couple it with like Stephen Greenstreet's reporting. And if you couple like the way that,
but we'll hold up real quick too with McGowan, because after he kind of backed away from that camp, he was hit with 2 rounds of harassment campaigns. One was just the initial backing away from the camp. He's spoken about, and we've seen it. They post his family everywhere. They accuse him of really heinous crimes. They reported him to the IRS. They've tried to get his security clearance taken away. They've slandered him on multiple occasions. They were putting calls behind the scenes to various podcast hosts. Because remember, when the picture was happening on the right, like McGowan was a guest on all those same shows that like that UFO podcast, all these people, right? I don't know if actually he was on there, but he was definitely like in the circle, right? He was very much treated in this community like a Sean Cahill was. And yeah, as soon as he kind of backed out, that first round happens, and then after like a year or so of dealing with that and kind of laying low, he releases his 4-part article series that everyone needs to read about his experiences, and that just launched a whole fresh campaign against him.
Right.
And another person who it started out super enthusiastic about this subject, and then like faces these weird dynamics, and then faces the weird harassment for noticing the weird dynamics, and now they're just kind of like they seem just kind of disenchanted with the whole topic and field.
Oh yeah, and I mean, we'll see what happens with Matt Ford. I mean, I wish him the best, right? But now he went from being a propagandist to now he is in a literal business with Lue Elizondo. So actual business with Lue Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, and Gary Nolan, right? He's in an actual business as the lead strategist for something.
Yeah.
So like he worked his way up, by playing ball and honestly protecting these attack dogs for this group. Not only protecting them, showering them with praise and lying and gaslighting the community that these guys were harmless while they were committing these like very heinous acts against the community, just because they were undesirables or they didn't work with the narrative. And that's not alleged. I'm literally, all this stuff is backed up. So, and you have multiple statements by other podcasters and people who are kind of like, producers and stuff for these podcasts that say that that's exactly what they were asked to do, and they feel bad that they did it. But at a certain point, it got too toxic and they had to back out. There might as well be a picture right here with Lue Elizondo and Thomas Fessler, but I don't know if they've ever met. You have to do the image of Fessler and his phone, right? Fessler holding his phone up to his ear. That's as close as he got, but he did most of the dirty work. So, it's kind of crazy. And and Fessler unfortunately admitted to the most on camera. So that sucks for him. So you're right, he should have been in Wyoming.
He should have totally been in Wyoming. Is Lue going to go on Disclosure tonight, you think, for the book tour or no?
I think that all depends on Moran Lerner's tenacity. That depends on these guys' behavior. That depends on if the inside information that I was just given today is true, then I'm going to say that he will not be going on podcasts like Fessler's soon.
Have I heard this inside information?
No, but I'm happy to share it with you after the show, and we'll figure out how to disseminate that if it's something safe enough to, through what we're doing here. But a lot of this stuff is like, let's just say that we might be on the right track here. Something, whatever is going on, a lot of these more public events, right, where it's clear to anyone who wants to look and piece these together. These might become more of a narrative. These things might become more powerful to the narrative than whatever is trying to be forced on us by these kind of religious, UAP disclosure activists, because the real story is the real story, and we'll see where that lands.
Here's one more that I kind of jumped around because we kind of did get to the two references here, but Carl Nell was also there. In the background, you could see him right here, and I just kind of enlarged it over here. And again, it sucks that I can't just be like, this is sick, right? It's like, there's just such a weird little tinge to it all that honestly, I think with a few steps, it wouldn't be like that. But I think it's just people they're already so set in their mindset. I mean, it looked fun. I'm glad Matt had fun. I honestly hope what happened to Lue and to McGowan doesn't happen to Matt Ford, because it's honestly sad to watch happen to people. And I hope he doesn't get used, but also I feel like he's really open to it, and he already comes from this political activism in the Trump era, right? He's a really strong anti-Trumper in the COVID era, right, when these political things are just already inflamed and enraged. And I think he's so far shown he's been kind of willing to do whatever they want so far.
Look at those fingernails. Anyway, the Carl Nell being in the mix is so on brand. This whole thing is very on brand, and that guy playing the guitar back there looks familiar too. Legit. What's going on in Wyoming, right? Is Lue running that town? We'll find out. But this has been an amazing little catch up, guys. It's been a big news day again. Julian Assange was freed today, and so we're going to follow that story this week, and we're going to get you more of a deep dive tomorrow about exactly how Julian Assange and WikiLeaks has played a role in what we call the modern disclosure era, and also some bad blood between Hal Puthoff and Julian Assange. We're going to dive into all that stuff tomorrow. Red, is that the show for tonight?
Yes, sir.
All right, dude. This was a good one. This was a good recap. We needed that. What a weekend, too, by the way. Guys, let us know in the chat and also on X what your favorite conspiracy theory about my W is. We want to know. I want to know. We'll take a vote at the end of the week, and we'll figure out which conspiracy theory was the best, and then we'll make a song about it, all right?
Yeah.
Until
also, if you guys, what you guys want to see an episode about or something like that, we've had some community members say they want a deep dive on Jay Stratton, which I think would be really interesting.
Oh, that'd be great.
We're gonna do the Mummies for sure, Assange for sure. But yeah, if there's anything y'all are really wanting to see us do, or someone you want us to interview with the way we interview people, with all the nice images and graphics and stuff that make it a really nice presentation, let us know in the comments.
Hell yes. And again, thank you everyone in the chat. Thanks for all of our members for popping in here. We love you guys. We wouldn't do this stuff without you. We also want to thank Nimbit, Slick Bishop, Courage First, Wag Boss. You guys really crushed it tonight with the donations. We really appreciate you guys. Until next time, guys, tomorrow we're here at the same time. If you guys want to hop into space, ask us some questions or give us some suggestions about what Red was talking about, please do. We love talking to you guys. Until next time, we'll play you out with some music for now. Until tomorrow, guys. Peace.
For the money, it's about to go fast. Got a plane ticket and you know it's first class. I heard someone talking that shit and I have to regulate. I need y'all dumb and easy to manipulate. When it comes to ufology, you know I caught the schism. Attack a housewife and then on to the next victim. I know you might be shocked, but that's just the way I am. Started so many UAP. Come with me, I forget where you lay. He's doing his best. He's knocking on the right doors. He's getting the guests and saying all the right words. All the right words. Oh Lord, Matt Ford. In 2022, Matt was not around. Ufology. What did he do to get so far with the Lue? Parasitology. You claim Green Street attacked Tim's fam. Well, damn. So will you tell him the truth or bend him the truth? We got the posts and we're gonna show them. Why didn't you show them that? Matt, did your evidence? Why is that? What did you do that for? What's up, Matt? Who the hell is Matt Ford? He's doing his best. He's knocking on the right doors. He's getting the guests and saying all the right words. Who they write for? Oh Lord, Matt Ford.
Oh man, named UFO Shane. He has 58 laptops. I'm not joking, he has 62 laptops. He knows more than you about everything. He's got more to do. He's UFO Shane. He's got the plan. His IP alcohol percentage insane. He has 83 laptops. I'm not joking, he has 96 laptops. So many laptops. My man, Shane has 48, 9 fucking portable computers in his stomach tower. Look at that. Stop sending UFO Shane like he's running out of space. I know a man named UFO Shane. He has 58 laptops. I'm not joking. He has 62